Everyone, my name is Priya Pandya, and I'm here to take your logical reasoning CR, and today's mock, which is mock CLAT 28, All India mock third. Okay, so I hope everyone's here, and we can start off with our today's session. I do have multiple points that I will be talking about. So, having said that, is everyone there? Can I have the chats? Okay. So I'm just waiting for others to join me so that we can start off with today's session. And if I can have the chats, if you are there, if I can have the chats with you. How did you find the mock? In all, आपको mock कैसा लगा? Hmm. So how was the mock? Did you find it moderate? Did you find it difficult? A particular passage that you thought went above you, over your head, and you kind of struggled with it? Or did you find the mock was comparatively easy and attemptable? So, yeah, okay. So let's start off with today's mock CLAT. Let's start off with the first passage itself. So what I have done is I have put out points. The reason for putting up the points and then of course coming to the main idea is points I have put in simply because you need to recollect whatever that you had read in the passage. So it will be available to you here. Second reason is to come to the main idea is to basically align our thoughts with that of the author. And also, I would also want to know that how many of you had the same idea or inferred similarly as given in the main idea or the points. Did you comprehend on the similar lines as what has been given in the passage, or did you your thought process was very different from what the passage talked about? So that also will give you an idea about where we stand. Okay. So, having said that, let's start off with today's first. We are talking about this passage, and I'm not going to be taking up the passage. We are going to straight away come to our points. So, I want you to go through these points very carefully. As you can see over here, there are multiple, have been mentioned multiple points that have been mentioned over here. So I have this particular one. I have dissected it into two, paragraph wise. So what happens is when you separate the points paragraph wise, it also helps you in understanding. So let's say the paragraph one in the passage discusses cricket's popularity and success in India. Okay, and this talks about how MS Dhoni to the subcontinent of people of India has the same popularity that you find like Messi and Ronaldo. And of course, paragraph 2 and 3 discuss sports and economic performance while discussing the underperformance of other sports with a special mention of 2010 Commonwealth Games. So here you will see that this has been discussed in paragraph 2 and 3, and the highlighters of those are here, where India, one of the BRICS nations, is recognized as having a vital global economy, right? Second says reports indicate that India's economic growth is outpacing Brazil and China. Third is that the Indian Premier League is a major sporting event comparable to the Super Bowl and UEFA Champions League in terms of commercial success and spectacle. Then underperformance in other sports, despite its cricket success, India underperforms in other sports, which is a key element that has been, pointed out by the author. If you look at it, that's the key element or the key issue, the concern that the author raises over here is basically that India underperforms in other sports, right? And then you have 2010 Commonwealth Games highlighted various issues, including controversies over the use of public funds, forced evictions, exploitative labor practices, and corruption. So this is highlighted in third, paragraph. And then, of course, the passage argues that there are diverse challenges that India faces in building a coherent sports strategy due to its diversity in geography, religion, and society. We are talking of the fourth paragraph over here, which talks about that the passage argues that there are diverse challenges that India faces in building a coherent sports strategy. Okay. And the reason for it should be highlighted that different regions excel in different sports, such as athletics in Kerala, wrestling in Haryana, and shooting in Delhi. So there is not a sustainable, coherent sports strategy for the other sports, and that is the reason that they are underperforming. And because we don't come up as unified India, right? We are broken down into regions and their own popularity with sports, and that is the reason that they underperform. So, author's main argument is that the lack of a unified approach makes it difficult for India to sustain a strong performance across various sports. So, that is what has been given out as points in paragraph. I mean, like, when you talk about passage one. Now, what is the main idea here? The main idea of the passage is that while India is highly successful and passionate about cricket, this success covers significant underperformance in other sports due to economic, social, and political challenges. Despite India's growing economic strength and the global prominence of events like the Indian Premier League, systematic issues such as corruption, exploitation, and lack of unified national identity obstruct the country's overall sporting achievement. So that is basically what has been mentioned over here. Now let's understand what is the purpose. Okay, when we talk in terms of purpose, see, the purpose of the passage is to highlight the inconsistencies in India's sporting success. It's emphasizing its dominance in cricket while pointing out its broader underachievement in other sports. It highlights the need for a more unified and equitable approach to sports development across the nation. So, guys, what I'm trying to tell you over here is, and I have mentioned this in multiple ways, that we need to understand how to derive or how to come to the main idea. And for that, just give me a minute. Um, okay, this. Okay. So I'm going to start off with a filtration process. In some of the classes I have taken earlier, and for you, some of you, I must be totally new. So it's through this the filtration process that I will tell you to take out the main idea. So when we talk about main idea, okay. Here why main idea is important is, and what is the need for the main ideas? Because if you take out the idea, then you have the strengthening type of questions. Then you have the inference questions, strengthening, weakening, inference, conclusion, assumptions. All of it ultimately boil down or come down to what the author wants to communicate. So we look at it like, let's take this particular part to be the passage. ठीक है, इसको अगर हम passage की तरह ले लें, so this comprises of 450 to 350 to 450 words. Okay, assuming that that's the number of words that are given in a passage. And then you have to kind of take out the main idea, which is ultimately 15 words to 25 words. Okay, 15 to 25 words में आपको उसको condense करना होता है. तो यहाँ पर पहला तो हमें सबसे पहले पता लगाना होता है कि what is the topic. If you look at the particular topic, definitely it's talking about sports in India. So though the mention is of cricket here, but the author is also highlighting the fact that the other sports are underperformed. So we can't simply say cricket here, it's sports in India. Okay, we have to take a larger perspective. Now, this comes to be the topic. ये आपका topic आ गया, ठीक है? अब ये टॉपिक के बाद पैसेज में अगर हम बात करें तो सेकंड चीज जो है वो बात करने की कोशिश कर रहा है, व्हाट अबाउट द टॉपिक. दूसरी वो बात कर रहा है कि टॉपिक के बारे में हम क्या कहना चाह रहा है. अब हमें एक्सटेंशन करना स्पोर्ट्स इन इंडिया, तो हमें इसको दो पार्ट्स में करना है, पॉपुलैरिटी ऑफ क्रिकेट versus other sports. So here, while cricket is very popular, passionately played, and focus has been given to cricket as a unified front, okay, with a coherent strategy, none of it is available to the other sports, and that is the reason that they are underperformed. So that is the elaboration or extension we are going to be using here. And then third, so this is your first, this is your second, and the third thing that you have to remember is what is the purpose of the author. वो क्यों लिख रहा है, ठीक है, वो आपसे क्या पहुंचाना चाह रहा है. तो बेसिकली क्या होता है गाइस कि हमको ये ध्यान देना होता है कि हम अपने आप से पूछे कि रीडर हम तक कुछ पहुंचाना चाह रहा है। मल्टीपल एरर्स जो हम ये करते हैं कि हम जैसी पैसेज पढ़ने लगते हैं हम सीधे सीधे उसको इन्फर करने लगते हैं, हम अपनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग से उस पैसेज को पढ़ते हैं। लेकिन आपको वो फोकस शिफ्ट करना है टू द ऑथर्स अंडरस्टैंडिंग, author's perspective. So you align your thought process with the author's perspective, move on to the author. When you move on to the author, automatically you will find that you have to think like this: what is the author trying to say, what is the author trying to communicate? So the moment you understand the purpose, because every time that the author writes, he wants the reader to understand his point of view, the purpose behind writing the passage. And once that is given, so the purpose is basically to highlight discrepancies among the sports, and why while cricket is has its fair share, a lion's share of popularity and economic resilience, other sports are underachieved, and that is what has been mentioned over here. Okay, so this takes care completely of what the main idea and the purpose is. Once that is drawn, once that is understood, the half, in fact, majority of the battle is won. आपका जो बैटल है वो काफी हद तक जो है आपके हाथ में आ चुका होगा, ठीक है? Level of difficulty, I would say level of difficulty would be moderate, barring that second passage where you had economics. Perhaps because उसमें भी दो तीन क्वेश्चन थोड़े से hypothetical आपके सामने आ गए थे. I would say the passage would be moderate. Okay. Hi Gaurav, how are you? Good afternoon. Okay, so here this is what the entire we are talking about, that the difficulty. If you look at this particular passage would be easy to moderate. It wasn't that difficult. Okay, and overall अगर मैं passage को बोलूं तो वो moderate था. Okay, so having said that, let's move on to the questions now. Like, इस क्वेश्चन में किसी को कोई डिफिकल्टी है क्या guys? According to the passage, what could have been the reason behind India's good performance at cricket? Now, definitely, India is. अगर आपने preferred, cricket is preferred by everyone over non. So here, the passage does not talk about preference of the public. If you look at it, it is not talking about the preference of the public here. So this was a detractor or distractor. We are going to be taking this down. So, and we say cricket is the most important sports in the world. Again, this is too far-fetched, too generalized, not mentioned in the passage. So, इसको भी हम rule out कर देंगे, इसको हम बाहर कर देंगे, ठीक है? तो ये आपका हमारा rule out हो गया. अब हम चलते हैं B and C में, ठीक है? अब B और C में ही ज्यादा confusion हुआ होगा. Why not B? Exactly. I'm coming on to the B. Anuj, tell me. Now it says India's good performance at cricket could be its economic strength. So basically, what you're trying to say is it is because of the economic strength. It is only the economic strength. You are taking about economic strength leading to India's good performance in cricket. Okay. So now, if that was the case, why not? Why are the other, sports underachieving? So there is no direct relationship. There are multiple other factors that come into play. For example, the history of the sports, the popularity of the sports. Now, just because economic strength. Today, when we talk about that India, basically we are talking about that आज India robust है, तो उसने cricket पे ज्यादा ध्यान दिया है. या अगर हम देखें तो क्रिकेट पास से ही ज्यादा ध्यान दिया गया है और बाकी पर फोकस नहीं आया. तो ये इतना सिंपल है, ये ओवर सिंप्लीफिकेशन है. इसको बोलते हैं ओवर सिंप्लीफिकेशन, वेयर वी आर ट्राइंग टू take out a direct relationship between cause and effect, that because India today has a robust economy, it is popularizing cricket. That is not the case. That is not what the author is saying. Also, here it is talking about India's good performance in cricket. Now, the author talks about last, अगर आप passage देखें तो author ने क्या बात करी है? Author ने ये बात करी है कि बाकी sports में sustainable, unified approach, coherent approach नहीं है. ठीक है? तो इसका मतलब हम क्या निकालेंगे कि cricket में है, तभी तो क्रिकेट इतना पॉपुलर है और इतना वाइड स्प्रेड है और वो उस पर ज्यादा ध्यान दिया जा रहा है. That means somewhere in a sustainable, coherent, strategic approach has been given to cricket, which has not been given to other sports. So this is a better choice over B. ओके, दैट इज वाई बी जो है हम उसको, where C is mentioned in the last paragraph. देखिए आप, उसको हमको इस तरह से, उसको ये implied है, देखिए implied कैसे है, वो अंडर अचीवमेंट्स की बात कर रहा है, अंडर परफॉर्मेंस की बात कर रहा है इन अदर स्पोर्ट्स, ठीक है। और वो रीजन दे रहा है कि क्यों बाकी स्पोर्ट्स अंडर परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं। और लास्ट के पैराग्राफ में उसने यहाँ बोला है, देखिए, इट इज हार्ड, देखिए लास्ट लाइन में थर्ड पैराग्राफ नीचे ऊपर से फोर्थ, इट इज हार्ड फॉर अ कंट्री टू बिल्ड अ सस्टेनेबल कोहेरेंट अप्रोच टू स्पोर्ट्स when the country itself consists of so many disparate elements, geographic, ये सब, ठीक है। So basically that is what he's putting up, that why other sports are not functioning, whereas cricket has a unified front. So that means if cricket is popular, clearly shows that it is a sustainable coherent approach to the sports at pan India level, and that shows that C is the correct answer over the B. ओवर बी बहुत ज्यादा डायरेक्ट है, इट सिंपली सेज क्योंकि क्रिकेट मतलब इंडिया बहुत इकोनॉमी अच्छी है, रोबस्ट है, तो क्रिकेट जो है उसकी वजह से आगे बढ़ रहा है। बट दैट इटसेल्फ इज नॉट द केस, इट इज नॉट सच अ कॉज एंड इफेक्ट केस, बिकॉज इवन व्हेन इंडियाज इकोनॉमी वाज नॉट दैट मच, तो अब तब भी क्रिकेट पॉपुलर था। तो ये आपका जो है ना, ये ओवर सिंप्लीफिकेशन है, इसलिए हम इसको रूल आउट करेंगे। Okay, now let's move on to it. Which of the following strengthens the argument of the author? Now, this must have confused some of you. How many of you got this? मतलब आपको confusion कैसा? Which of the following strengthens the argument of the author? इसको इसमें आपको किन किन लोगों को confusion हुआ होगा? चलिए मुझे बताइए। अब आंसर इसका था, cricket and other sports have always received undivided attention from sponsors and broadcasters in India. Now, why would I take this particular answer? Because here it talks about the popularity, which is also a fact where you have been received, attention by the media. Okay. So what he's saying is, if the sports have always received undivided attention from sponsors and broadcasters in India, okay, in cricket and other sports, both have always received undivided attention from sponsors and broadcasters in India. And despite that, if the other sports are underperforming, then it is clearly, strengthening the fact that despite everything, despite sponsors, despite broadcasters, the other sports are actually underachieving. So this is the assumption on this. This is kind of strengthening the assumption. What is strengthening the assumption is that all sports are being given same, popular, same kind of attention. They are being, especially from the sponsors and the broadcasters, and yet you have other sports underperforming. Okay, so this gives you the idea that it is because of the geography, the regional disparities. It talks about the political dissensions. So that could be the reason. So A is strengthening the fact that despite undivided attention from sponsors and broadcasters in India, cricket has been become very popular. Other sports are underachievers simply because there are other reasons for which they are underperforming. That is why we are going to take A as the correct answer. Now let's look at the B1. The media channels got a lot of TRP ratings when they cover cricket over other sports. Okay. Now it's not about TRP. Media channels get a lot of TRP ratings when they cover cricket over other sports. Now this does talk about media channels, but this is too narrow to be strengthening. We are only taking one aspect, which is media's channel getting a TRP, and we are saying this is the only reason that cricket is being covered and other sports are not covered. So we are saying that media channels exposure to a particular sports makes the sports very popular and a performer. So are we saying that media is responsible for the performance of sports? So that is not something that can be taken out. A report in review revenue generated through sponsorship shows that non-cricket sports in India get more sponsorships than cricket. तो ये तो उसको weaken कर रहा है, ठीक है। और अगर मैं लिखूं the cricketers and other sportsmen in India got a lot of money for playing respective sports in addition to sponsorship, तो फिर ये तो फिर अगेन इट मींस दे आर बोथ एट पैरेलल, दैट मींस वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ दे आर नॉट अंडर अचीवर्स, तो ये भी आपका जो है वीकन कर रहा है, तो इसको भी हम रूल आउट कर देंगे, ठीक है। सो नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन, which of the following is the primary argument of the author? Now guys, did you go about the primary arguments? Look at the question stem, keep that in mind, that we're looking at the main argument of the author. So if you're looking at the main argument of the author, it says, first let's take the first one, the cricket success cricket poses in India is misleading as it doesn't represent image of a unified India. Now, this is one of the author's claim. Okay, that is one of the author's claim, but it is a sub claim. Understand, it is a sub conclusion. It is not the main conclusion. The main conclusion is bordering around the others, that underperformance of the other sports due to a non-sustainable and incoherent strategy. ओके, सो ऑटोमेटिकली यहाँ पे ये सब कंक्लूजन है। अब बी क्या बोल रहा है, डिस्पाइट क्रिकेट्स पॉपुलैरिटी रिफ्लेक्टिंग इंडियाज माइट, इंडिया underachieves in sports beyond cricket. This is the crux of the complete passage. This carries the soul of the passage. Automatically, this will be the correct answer. Looking at C, India's ongoing success in cricket reinforces its status as one of the world's top cricketing nations. Now, top cricketing nations is something that cannot be derived from the passage, though it does talk about India's popularity. It does talk about why India is so successful in India. It's why cricket is so successful in India itself. So automatically, this is far-fetched kind of an inference. Even if true, it is not mentioned in the passage that I can take it up. While we can't even say like it's a top cricketing nations. Okay, so let's lose. I mean, this is not even an argument that has been presented. Let's look at the D1. Diverse cultural, geographic, and social landscape is a challenge to developing a unified approach to sports. Now, guys, again, this is a sub argument. Okay, a rationale as to why India is not successful, is an underachiever in other sports. So while this is true, a better argument would be that despite cricket's popularity, like and in showing India's might, India underachieves in sports beyond cricket. This is what the author has talking about. Has talked about this. The author has taken into consideration as in वो क्रिकेट की पॉपुलैरिटी कंपेयर टू अदर स्पोर्ट्स उसके बारे में बात कर रहा है, तो बी इज अ बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. But ma'am, if that is the case, then isn't it contradicting the argument? The language of option A isn't much fathomable and relatable when compared to passage's argument. Kanishka, I do understand what you're trying to say. But is it given, अच्छा we are talking about the 86 one, right? 86 का जो आप बात कर रहे हो मेरे से, definitely it is something which will not come out directly. It requires an understanding of the entire passage. Out of the given choices, the one, and now supposing I have four options given to me and one of them had to be correct, automatically these two weaken. This is only talking about one factor, like again a oversimplification, that it is the media channels that make a sports popular. Whereas if this is kind of taking, इसको बहुत ज्यादा हम narrowed down ले रहे हैं strengthening का this one factor, so ये partially weaken कर रहा है. देखिए strengthen and weaken में हमें दो, आपको समझना पड़ेगा, दो options close होते हैं, ठीक है, आपको भी पता है कि दो options close होते हैं. तो उन दो options में जो close होते हैं, एक 100% आपका आंसर होता है which is either most strengthening, आपको ध्यान रखना है, ठीक है, और एक होता है जो कि पार्शियल स्ट्रेंथन करता है, ठीक है. अब पार्शियल स्ट्रेंथन को मैं नहीं ले सकती हूँ. अब आप ये वाला जो ऑप्शन ले रहे हैं बी वाला, वो पार्शियली स्ट्रेंथन कर रहा है, वो सिर्फ मीडिया को लेकर के चल रहा है. लेकिन ए वाला आपका बता रहा है कि इट इज नॉट, अगर दोनों को अनडिवाइडेड अटेंशन फ्रॉम स्पॉन्सर्स एंड ब्रॉडकास्टर्स मिल रहा है, देन व्हाट इज द रीजन दैट दे आर अंडर अचीविंग? So clearly it is the regional, geopolitical and other factors that are coming into play. So A, in all of this, A is the correct answer. देखिए एक मैं आपको बात बताती हूँ, CLAT में भी ऐसा होगा. It may not be the perfect or a desirable answer. But out of the given choices, you have to select one which is the best in that. Okay. Okay, you are saying in question number 87, B definitely isn't B the main idea of the passage. तो B ही तो है, यही तो आपका main idea है. ये सारे ये argument सब arguments है, ये आपका A and D आपका सब argument है. ठीक है, crux जो soul है वो B ही है आपका. तो 87 में तो बिल्कुल correct है. B is the correct answer to this one. Okay, now moving. Is this clear to everyone? आप लोगों को clear हुआ कि यहाँ पर हमें कैसे समझना है? Now let's move on to the 88th. Which of the following is supported by the information in the passage? Which of the following is supported by the information in the passage? Now, naturally, in order to be, this D is the correct answer. Any doubts in this one? Any doubts in this particular one, which is supported? India has room for improvement in fostering talent and promoting sports beyond cricket. That is what the main purpose of the author is saying, that we have enough room to work around the non-performance of the other sports. Ye clear hai, Chesh? Okay, Chahana, you're saying this is clear. What about the others, guys? Did you get, आपको इसमें marks मिले थे? क्या आप इसको समझ पाए थे? India has room for improvement, fostering talent and promoting sports beyond cricket. आपको इसमें marks मिल गए थे? Did you? No. Why not A? In order to be successful at cricket, a picture characteristic unified of India needs to be presented. In order to be successful at cricket, a picture characteristic unified of India, in unified India needs to be presented. Guys, this is not what the author is talking about. This is not supported that to be in order to be successful at cricket. Cricket को तो already successful बोल चुका है ना author. This is not about cricket. Cricket को तो वो successful बोल चुका है. ठीक है? So this is not about cricket at all. Which one are you saying? How, ma'am? How D? Because this is what the author is inferring, that there's a room for improvement in fostering talent and promoting sports beyond cricket. So what the author is saying is that cricket alone does not represent India's sports. Okay, one has to pay attention to the other sports as well. So this definitely will be supported by the information in the passage. So what is the support? Support is not true or wrong. Support is basically, it is a further take on of the passage. It is an inference. Okay, so inference that supports the entire passage. So automatically D is the one which is supporting the entire crux of the passage. Let's look at the B1. India's performance during 2010 Commonwealth Games was worse than most underperforming Commonwealth nation. ऐसा कोई information नहीं है, not mentioned in the passage, तो इसको तो हम rule out कर देंगे. Names in cricket like MS Dhoni and Sachin Tendulkar are as renowned in the world. Is it talking about in the world? चलिए मुझे बताइए, is it talking about in the world? No, it is talking about the people of the subcontinent. Look at the last line of the first paragraph. It says the sport might not have the global appeal of, say, football, but to people on the subcontinent, names like MS Dhoni and Sachin Tendulkar are as to the people on the subcontinent. So we're talking of India. India में MS Dhoni and Sachin Tendulkar की वही popularity है जो कि वर्ल्ड में मेसी और रोनाल्डो की है. So automatically this is also wrong. So D is the correct answer to this one. Okay, समझ में आ गया? आप लोगों को समझ में आ गया कि कैसे इसको डील करना है, कैसे इसको समझना है? Okay, now we move on to 89th one. The author is likely to agree with which of the following arguments? Naturally, the arguments in the passage of the author, so we have to find one which is in sync with the author's argument. Let's take the A1. India's passion for cricket is one of the prime reasons why it is unable to perform at other sports. Is this what the passage, author is saying? That it is India's passion for cricket that we are not paying attention to other sports and the performance is not up to the mark? No, it has not been said about this. Okay, the relationship between India's might in cricket and India's economic prowess is not established. No, it has been established, and that is the reason that we have Premier League. Okay, so this, in fact, is contrary to what the author is saying. in the passage. Let's move on to the C1. Can you hear me? Okay, so it says here controversy surrounding the Commonwealth Games suggests broader governance issue within Indian sports. Absolutely. If you look at it, that is what a closer, it says, look at the passage, paragraph 2 and 3. A closer look at the 2010 Commonwealth Games holds some of the answers. The games were controversial even before India won the right to host them. Intense differences split politicians on the subject of whether or not staging a sporting mega event was the right way to spend public money and therefore address pressing public health and education need. Okay, so these are the controversies within this. This suggests that a broader governance issues within Indian sports. That's what the author is saying. That it is not specific to particular event. This clearly reflects India's ongoing challenge. So C is the correct answer. Let's look at the D1. Incidences of inequality and corruption in Commonwealth Games doesn't represent a wider problem within Indian sports. This is absolutely contrary to what the author it says. It says it is not just one event, right? It talks about, holds some of the answers. It clearly says it is not one of of the target event. Definitely it is does represent a wider problem with Indian sports, and that is why the author used common 2010 Commonwealth as one of the examples to showcase where we lack. Okay, so D is absolutely out, so hence C is the correct answer. ओके सो इज दिस क्लियर टू एवरीवन? ये क्लियर हो गया गाइस? आपको समझ में आ गया कि यहाँ पर हमें अप्रोच क्या था एंड हाउ, मतलब आपको मार्क्स भी मिले होंगे, आई एम श्योर एक आध आपका जरूर गलत गया होगा, बट ऑन द होल आपको इसमें मार्क्स जरूर मिले होंगे, ठीक है? चलिए, shall we move to passage 2? Tell me how many of you struggled with passage 2? How many of you struggled with passage 2? India's GDP growth rate. Okay, Shana, you were clear. Very good. How many? I mean, your marks were absolutely on at par. Clear. Okay. Still, for those who struggled with economics, and I do have students coming up to me and asking me, "Ma'am, economics के passages समझ में नहीं आते हैं, ठीक है? और अगर उसमें एक hypothetical question या scenario आ जाए question stem में, तो वो problem करता है, ऐसा बोला गया है, ठीक है? So passage 2 was easy. Wow. Oh, wonderful. If Anuj, you're saying passage 2 was easy. What about others? I see some of you here. Was passage 2 easy for everyone? Let's move on now to, अच्छा, हम ये 90 कर लेते हैं. The argument that India is underperforming in sports beyond cricket can be vitiated. Vitiated means weakened. Vitiated का मतलब होता है weakened कर देना, उसको invalid कर देना. Oh, you scored 5 out of 6 in the first passage. That is excellent, Jana. That is excellent. Yeah, one question I'm doing it. The argument that India is underperforming in sports is can be vitiated if which of the following was known. What known information would weaken the fact that India is underperforming in sports? Okay. So which of the following? It was moderate. Yes, absolutely right. Owing to the huge fan following, media channels primarily cover cricket over other sports, depriving citizens of information on other sports. Well, if that is the case, if there is no exposure of information of other sports to the public, automatically people have no idea about the other sports or whether they are performing good or not performing. This would vitiate that even if they were performing well, people would not know, including the author, would not have access to the information that they are also equally performing well. But because of media, people do not have information, hence they are not popular and they do not get the same kind of weightage as cricket. So automatically, if this is known, then it can easily vitiate that India is underperforming. अगर हम A ले, a recent decision by Ministry of Sports hints a significant shift in focus from other sports to cricket. ठीक है, फ्रॉम अदर स्पोर्ट्स टू क्रिकेट वो बोल रहा है, अ रीसेंट डिसीजन बाय स्पोर्ट्स मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ स्पोर्ट्स हिंट्स अ सिग्निफिकेंट शिफ्ट इन फोकस फ्रॉम अदर स्पोर्ट्स टू क्रिकेट। तो ये जरूर बोल रहा है कि अदर स्पोर्ट्स का मतलब है कि दे वर वेरी पॉपुलर, और उसका वो पॉपुलैरिटी उन्होंने क्रिकेट की तरफ बढ़ा दिया। दैट मीन्स दे आर नॉट अंडर परफॉर्मिंग, बट इट्स अ सिग्निफिकेंट शिफ्ट इन फोकस। दैट मीन्स टिल नाउ इट वाज नॉट द केस। तो ये फ्यूचर की बात कर रहा है, तो क्लियरली ये विशिएट नहीं कर रहा है। ठीक है, नाउ लेट्स लुक एट द बी वन। जॉब्स जनरेटेड विद पॉपुलैरिटी ऑफ क्रिकेट अल्टीमेटली बेनिफिट द इंडियन इकोनॉमी। जॉब जनरेटेड विद पॉपुलैरिटी ऑफ क्रिकेट, तो ये तो ऑटोमेटिकली क्रिकेट की बात कर रहा है, तो ये आपका रूल आउट हो गया। Studies show that there is a direct economic impact of successful cricket events like the IPL on Indian economy. ये अगेन इस चीज को स्ट्रेंथन कर रहा है, ठीक है, ये वीकन नहीं कर रहा है। तो आपका डी इज द करेक्ट आंसर। Right. Now let's look at the passage two. I'm going to come to the points here. These are before I come to the points, I wanted to read this particular information. What is a downward revision of output and what is an upward revision of output? Okay, though how much of it was necessary, that's a different take. But still, giving you an idea that a downward revision of output refers to the process of adjusting previously reported economic data to reflect a lower level of production or economic activity than initially estimated. मान लीजिए अगर आपने अगर एस टी पी की इकोनॉमिस्ट ने बोला है कि 6% है, ठीक है, तो वो फिर वो पता लगता है कि नहीं यार, ये जितना भी जिस तरह से हमें डेटा समझ में आ रहा है, जिस तरह से भी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी हुई है, तो हमने जो प्रोजेक्शन 6% का किया था वो हम इसको 5.8% पे ले आते हैं, तो ऑटोमेटिकली दैट इज नोन एज अ downward revision of output. ठीक है, so it reveals that the initial estimates were too high, and in the context of the passage previous years data अगर हम लें, the output और GDP data for 2021-22 and 2022-23 was initially reported higher than what was accurate data later indicated. Now adjustment का है, economists in succession reviewed and revised these figures downward to correct them. ठीक है, now let's look at the upward revision of output. Upward revision of output refers to the process of adjusting previously reported economic data to reflect a higher level of production. तो जहां पे ये लोअर लेवल ऑफ प्रोडक्शन बताता है, वहां पे ये हायर लेवल ऑफ प्रोडक्शन और इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज करते हैं देन इनिशियली एस्टिमेटेड. This revision typically occurs when new, more accurate or comprehensive data becomes available, indicating that the initial estimates were too low. Now, in the context of the passage, current year forecast for the year 2023-24, the economic growth rate has been revised upward. Reason this revision happened because the economic output for the previous year, which is this, was revised downward, making the current year's figures comparatively higher. क्योंकि previous years में downward दिखाया था, तो इसको higher दिखाने से government का भी एक overall जो people have a fear, let's say a perception of the government, that is also one of the indicators. Now implication of upward revision is improved economic outlook. The upward revision suggests that the economy is performing better than than previously thought. Now investor and consumer confidence बढ़ाने के लिए भी किया जाता है, policy adjustments के लिए भी आप करते हैं. For example, if the initial estimate of a country's GDP growth in a particular year was 3%, but new data shows that the economy actually grew by 4%, this would be an upward graph. Overall, the upward revisions can enhance perceptions of economic health and stability, influencing various economic decisions and strategies. It is to build up the confidence, the boosting the confidence of the businesses and the people in general. That is why it is done, right? So that there is some kind of thrive in the economic activities. So now let's look at what the passage is talking about. I just read this particular one and just go through it. Decadal मतलब होता है in 10 years. Okay. Guys, are you done with this? Let's move on to now what is the main idea. So the main idea of the passage of India's reported high GDP growth rate for 2023-24 is somewhat misrepresenting. Okay, that's what the author is trying to say and requires careful analysis. While the headline growth figures appear impressive, they are largely influenced by the downward revision of the economic output in the previous years. The growth is not uniformly distributed across sectors with significant weaknesses in agriculture and private consumption, which are critical for poverty reduction and overall economic health. So the passage emphasizes the need for a broad-based growth and addresses the challenge they faced by Indian economy, such as weak consumer sentiment, stagnant incomes, and high inflation, which are hindering sustainable economic developments. That is what the passage is about. Now, what is the purpose? The purpose of the author through the passage is to analyze the current GDP on various parameters. ठीक है, आपको ध्यान रखना various parameters पे analyze करने को बोल रहे हैं, highlighting that while the current GDP reflects positivity, it comes with various disparities in across sectors with a strong need to focus on growth strategies that are inclusive and comprehensive, which increase the national input, is basically what the author is talking about. Okay, so here we come to which of the following is the primary argument of the author. Did you guys have any issues here? Primary argument of the author? That is what the author is talking about. The lack of broad-based growth remains. That is where it is talking about that while one sector is doing good, the others are not doing that good. So it does not show that there is an increase in national input, right? Am I not audible? Okay, am I not audible? What about now? Just let me talk to. No, ma'am. Okay, just give me a minute. Am I audible? So to some I'm audible, to some I'm not. What about the rest of you? Am I audible? Audible. Okay. Okay. Sometimes this tool gets the headphone slips, so that could be the problem, or there could be some internet issues also. So are we clear about this? Were you able to get this despite impressive GDP numbers concerned regarding the lack of broad-based growth remains? How many of you got this correct? How many of you got this correct? Wow, Ritika got it correct. What about others? How many of you got this correct? Although the GDP picture doesn't seem rosy, a closer look at the situation reveals that the situation हो गया वो audible reveals that the situation is not as concerning as it seems. If that were the case, why would the author write in the first place? Because the author's main purpose is to tell that whatever GDP, whatever rosy picture that has been shown or is impressive, it does not actually reflect a sound economy because there are certain sectors that are lagging behind, especially the ones that can uplift the poverty index. So automatically this is contrary to what has been mentioned in the passage. So we'll rule this out. Let's look at the B1. The GDP seems to be improving on accounts of downward revision on output from the previous years. Now, guys, this is just a sub-argument. It is too narrow to be the primary argument. It is just uh, premise, one of the premises on which stands. So this is not the main argument. Let's look at the C1. While private investment is showing strength, private consumption remains weak due to factors such as stagnant incomes and high inflation. Again, this is pointing to the rationale behind why some sectors are lagging behind. So this is providing an explanation or a rationale, right? So this is not the main argument. The main argument is D, which carries the soul of the passage. Wonderful. Let's move on. So is this clear? Any confusion here, anyone? Or shall I move forward? आगे बढ़ जाऊं? Okay. Chali, let's move on to this one. If the government had managed to keep the subsidies constant while increasing tax collections, what might have been the implication for the reported GDP growth in the third quarter? Okay. अगर देखो पैसेज क्या बोल रहा है कि इंक्रीज्ड टैक्स कलेक्शन के साथ, ठीक है, कलेक्शन के साथ उन्होंने लोअर सब्सिडी कर दिया था. व्हाट इज लोअर सब्सिडी? main argument is looking at the premises that the author talks about, that the main purpose of the author in coming to, that is the purpose of the author, the main argument is the final point of view that the author wants to put in front of you. Okay, that is the main idea. Main argument leads to main idea. Main idea must have the main premise also, relevant key points plus the author's a main argument to form a main idea. Okay, from where the assumptions will be drawn, from where the strengthening and weakening are to be drawn. So you have to keep in mind what is the conclusion that the author is talking about. So main argument leads to the conclusion, the final input that the author wants to convey based on key print. तो अगर हम दोनों को मिला देंगे तो वो मेन आइडिया हो जाएगा. अदरवाइज हम सिर्फ ऑथर के क्लेम, मेन क्लेम को उठाएंगे तो वो मेन आर्ग्यूमेंट हो जाएगा. Is this clear, Kanishka? Okay, rationale का मतलब होता है logical explanation. Okay, the logical explanation, Ritika, that you give is a rationale. Is this clear to everyone? Okay, so now here we are talking about, okay, was this clear? What is a lower subsidy? Let's first understand what is a lower subsidy, guys. हम बात करते हैं लोअर सब्सिडी का मतलब होता है, ओके, लोअर सब्सिडी का मतलब होता है, सॉरी, रिडक्शन इन द गवर्नमेंट असिस्टेंस. ओके, why not A for this question? That's what I'm coming to. First of all, let's understand lower subsidy. It is the reduction in the financial incentives or in the assistance that is given to many businesses, especially the agricultural sector or the business, small businesses, to boost the economy, to boost the उससे क्या होता है कि आपकी जो इकोनॉमी है, आप जब सब्सिडीज देते हो तो जो आपके कॉस्ट ऑफ द गुड्स एंड प्रोडक्ट है वो कम हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि आपने उसमें सब्सिडी दी होती है, तो उसका जो रॉ मटेरियल है वो इतना महंगा नहीं आता, तो उससे कॉस्ट कम हो जाती है, जिससे कि ओवरऑल जो पब्लिक है उनको बूस्ट मिलता है, उनकी जो डिस्पेंसिबल इनकम है वो थोड़ी बढ़ती है, जिससे कि वो फिर एक्सपेंडिचर पे जाते हैं, वो स्पेंड करते हैं उसको. सो दैट हेल्प्स, और इससे बिजनेसेस भी बूस्ट होते हैं, ओवरऑल इकोनॉमी को ग्रोथ मिलती है. लेकिन इससे क्या होता है, इट पुट्स लॉट ऑफ let's say it puts lot of drain on government's fiscal, ओवरऑल फिस्कल जो सीन है उस पर बहुत ज्यादा गवर्नमेंट को एक तरह का से गवर्नमेंट को फायदा नहीं मिल पाता, ठीक है, क्योंकि डेफिसिट होता है, फिस्कल डेफिसिट होने लगता है, क्योंकि जब सब्सिडी गवर्नमेंट देगी तो ऑटोमेटिकली वो पैसा जो है, वो गवर्नमेंट के पास जो पैसा है उसी से फिर जो वो गैप बनता है उसको वो फुलफिल करती है, ठीक है, ताकि एकदम से इकोनॉमी डाउन भी ना चली जाए. तो ऑटोमेटिकली ये वाइल आप बिजनेसेस को बूस्ट तो कर रहे हो, लेकिन इससे गवर्नमेंट के पैसों में कमी आने लगती है, ठीक है. हाँ, so what is happening is, let's understand कि यहाँ पे क्या निकल रहा है. वो कह रहा है, if the government had managed to keep subsidies constant, अगर मान लीजिए सब्सिडीज कांस्टेंट रखता, ठीक है, सब्सिडीज कांस्टेंट रखता, ठीक है, यहां तो अभी उन्होंने ये करा था, ये इसलिए करा था ताकि वो जीडीपी की ग्रोथ को ढंग से दिखा पाए, वो कह रहा है इंक्रीज इन नेशनल इनपुट की वजह से जीडीपी इतना हाई नहीं दिखा रहा है, बिकॉज ये एक्शन जो गवर्नमेंट ने लिया था इसकी वजह से जीडीपी बूस्ट हुई है। ठीक है, तो ये क्या है, दिस इज अ टेम्पररी सोल्यूशन। ठीक है, ये एक टेम्पररी एक्शन है जो कि एक इंस्टेंट सोल्यूशन, जैसे होता है ना ग्लूकोज लगा देना जिससे कि आपको अचानक से एनर्जी मिल जाती है, तो ये वो है। ठीक है, तो ये इंस्टेंट बूस्ट देता है इकोनॉमी, बट ये टेम्पररी होता है, ये फुल टाइम आपका काम नहीं कर सकता है, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट के फंड्स लोअर होने लगते हैं जब हम इसको बहुत ज्यादा, तभी तो आप देखते हैं सब्सिडीज या फ्रीबीज बंद करने को बोलते हैं। क्यों करने बोलते हैं, क्योंकि इसका भार कौन, बर्डन कौन उठा रहा है, गवर्नमेंट उठा रही है। तो गवर्नमेंट के पास भी तो एक लिमिटेड पैसा ही है ना कि जितना वो कर सकती है। लेकिन जब आप सब्सिडीज कांस्टेंट रखते हो व्हाइल इंक्रीजिंग टैक्स कलेक्शन, तो ऑटोमेटिकली व्हाट इट इंप्लाइज, इसका हम देखें तो इसका मतलब क्या निकलता है, इसका मतलब रखता है दैट द गवर्नमेंट बाय इंप्रूविंग इट्स फिस्कल बैलेंस, इससे गवर्नमेंट का फिस्कल बैलेंस डायरेक्ट अगर हम देखें तो फिस्कल बैलेंस इंप्रूव होता है। और अगर फिस्कल बैलेंस गवर्नमेंट का इंप्रूव होता है तो वो साइमल्टेनियसली कुछ साउंड इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रेटजीज एंड पॉलिसीज लेके आती है। एंड जब ये वो पॉलिसीज लेके आती है, इट ऑल्सो इंश्योर्स that there is no direct negative impact on consumer spending। ठीक है, सो कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग पे डायरेक्ट नेगेटिव इंपैक्ट नहीं होता, तो ये इसका डायरेक्ट इंपैक्ट ये निकल के आता है, 100%। ये 100% जो है आपका इंपैक्ट लेकर के आता है। अब हम ऊपर देखते हैं, इट वुड हैव लाइकली लेड टू अ लोअर जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट ड्यू टू रिड्यूस्ड कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग। Now guys, ये अगेन ओवर सिंप्लीफिकेशन है। ओवर सिंप्लीफिकेशन का मतलब है आपने ये इंस्टेंट आपने निकाला कि जीडीपी लोअर ग्रोथ दिखाएगा रेट ड्यू टू रिड्यूस्ड कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग। नाउ गाइस, क्या हम ये ले सकते हैं कि जस्ट बाय, मतलब उन्होंने कांस्टेंट अगर सब्सिडीज, ये एक इसको वेरिएबल रखा, ये तो उसने इंक्रीज कर ही रहा है, वह तब भी कर रहा था, तो आप ये कह रहे हैं कि इसका कोई इंपैक्ट नहीं पड़ा होगा, आप कह रहे हैं कि सिर्फ इसकी वजह से ये हुआ है, सिर्फ सब्सिडीज कांस्टेंट कर लेने से अचानक से जो है आपका रिड्यूस्ड कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग हो गया? नहीं, it is much more complex than that। you are totally disregarding the increasing tax collection। so अगर हम इसको बढ़ा देंगे तो कोई डायरेक्ट आपका इससे कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग कम हुआ ऐसा नहीं हुआ होगा, क्योंकि ये भी साथ साथ चल रहा है। तो ऑटोमेटिकली यहां पर ये ज्यादा, देयर आर मल्टीपल कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज इन्वॉल्व। तो अगर ऐसा होगा तो गवर्नमेंट क्यों लेगी ये कॉल? अगर सब्सिडीज को कांस्टेंट रखेगी तो गवर्नमेंट कोई ना कोई इंश्योर करेगी कि पॉलिसी आएगी जिससे कि कंज्यूमर की स्पेंडिंग रिड्यूस ना हो जाए। इट विल कम अप विद सम पॉलिसी। तो ये तो बिल्कुल ही हम नहीं कह सकते इट वुड लाइकली लीड टू अ लोअर जीडीपी। व्हाई वुड गवर्नमेंट ट्राई टू ब्रिंग इन अ लोअर जीडीपी? वो नहीं करेगी, क्योंकि इससे पूरा एंथुसियाज्म खत्म होता है। लेकिन जब वो कांस्टेंट कर देती है सब्सिडीज को, यानी इससे नीचे लोअर नहीं गिरेगा, तो उसका जो फिस्कल बैलेंस है वो इंप्रूव होता है, तो उससे वो बहुत सारे नए स्ट्रैटेजीज, इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसीज लेके आ सकता है, जिससे कि आपका वो इस इंपैक्ट को वो नहीं होने देता, इसको वो बफर जोन दे देता है। ठीक है, दैट इज व्हाई दिस इज नॉट द लाइकलीहुड, बट दिस इज 100% लाइकलीहुड। ठीक है, तो ये प्रोबेबिलिटी की तरफ जा रहा है, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट ऐसा होने नहीं देगी। और ये जो है आपका ये 100% जा रहा है कि इससे 100% ये निकल के आएगा। तो ये इसलिए नहीं होगा क्योंकि जब वो कांस्टेंट रखेगी तो इट विल कम अप विद पैकेजेस विच विल बी सो गुड दैट ऑटोमेटिकली जो रिड्यूस्ड कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग है वो नहीं होगा, वो एक बफर जोन दे देगा। ठीक है, दैट इज व्हाई ए इज नॉट द करेक्ट आंसर। Now there would be no significant impact on GDP growth. This is absolutely ruled out because there in the passage there has been shown a relationship between the two. So this is ruled out. Now let's look at the D1. The GDP growth could appear less impressive, overshadowed by concerns of rising public debt. Now, while it is true, it can happen that there could be a rising public debt, but we cannot be sure that that could be the case. This is going in probability. Again, जो probability पे जाते हैं कि ऐसा हो सकता है ऐसा नहीं हो सकता, उस ऑप्शन को हम इतने अच्छे से नहीं लेंगे। रिमेंबर, जो 100% लाइक्लीहुड आ रहा है उसको हमें लेना है। ठीक है, जो 100% लाइक्लीहुड नहीं आ रहा उन्हें हमें अवॉइड करना है। प्लस यहाँ पर मेंशन भी नहीं है पैसेज में कहीं भी पर्सनल कि ऐसा होके ही रहेगा, तो हम इसको नहीं ले। अगर ये हाइपोथेटिकल सिचुएशन है, सो इट लीड्स टू अ सर्टेन सर्टेनिटी विच इज बी। ओके, ए भी जरूरी नहीं है और आपका डी भी जरूरी नहीं है। चलिए, नाउ लेट्स मूव ऑन टू 93. The authors claim that good GDP numbers are largely due to downward revision of output in 2021 and 2023, which in turn led to an upward revision of the current year forecast. What information could most strengthen the claim that the upward revision of the current year's GDP forecast is justified? According to the author, it is not. But which of the following information would strengthen the claim that upward revision of the current year's GDP forecast is justified? How many of you had problems with this? How many of you had problems with this? Anybody who had problems with this? Hmm. Okay, so we are talking about justified. So, evidence of a substantial improvement in productivity across major sectors. Definitely evidence of a substantial improvement in productivity across major sectors. ये आपका 100% जस्टिफाई कर रहा है। क्यों कर रहा है? क्योंकि ये ऑलरेडी हो चुका है ना? दिस हैपेंड, दिस हैज ऑलरेडी बीन डन। ये आपके सामने एक प्रूफ है। ठीक है, दैट इज वाई हम इसको चूज कर रहे हैं। ठीक है, अब हम अगर even I got it correctly, I got this one correct. Okay, wonderful. Anybody else who had an issue with this one? A decision to significantly increase in foreign direct investment compared to the previous year. Now, this one is not given in the passage, but even if I were to say that we are talking of the productivity across major sections, what is the main crux of the passage? That there is not broad-based, improvement in GDP. We are talking of some sectors performing well and some sectors not performing that well. So basically, this is what the line of thought is. This justifies if this has happened, then it is clearly that the upward revision of the current GDP forecast is justified because it is showing increase in the national input. So automatically this shows clear. Now, when we talk about foreign direct investment, it is one of the markers. Okay, so it is one of the markers. So this alone cannot show this kind of an upward revision in a GDP. So this is ruled out. And a decision to significantly increase is also a future intake. So future में ऐसा हो ना हो, probability की तरफ चला जाता है, जबकि हमें certainty को उठाना है. Now, a recent discovery of a major natural resource is expected to boost future exports. Again, this is one of the markers. Again, in future, so we don't know whether this will happen or not happen and what will be the impact of that. So this again goes into probability. Let's say an increase in consumer confidence and spending in current fiscal year. This is a consequence of upward revision of the current year's GDP. This will, if the current year's GDP is forecast is justified, it will increase consumer confidence and spending in the current fiscal year. Automatically, now looking at it, so between B and D, this has to happen for this to happen. Okay, so B has to happen for D to happen. So this is a better choice. Now, between the choices, if we were to take, B is a better choice over D. Right. Now, moving on to 94th one. Given the information on sector-specific growth rates and their contribution to GDP, what can be inferred about the potential impact on India's labor market in the next fiscal year? Now, we are talking about अगर जो sector-specific growth है, sector-specific growth किसमें थी? इंडस्ट्री में, है ना? इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर में ग्रोथ थी। किस सेक्टर में ग्रोथ नहीं थी? एग्रीकल्चरल रिलेटेड, एग्रीकल्चर से आपका जो है उसमें ग्रोथ नहीं थी। तो इसमें वो बोल रहा है इंक्रीज्ड अपॉर्चुनिटीज इन एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर। ये तो बिल्कुल कॉन्ट्ररी हो जाएगा, है ना? ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता क्योंकि एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर इज नॉट शोइंग अ डिसमल परफॉर्मेंस। Now B, potential decrease in industrial employment due to automation and productivity improvement. While this could be true in the context of a larger perspective, but from the passage's perspective, we can't come to automation and productivity improvements, खासकर the AI, the automation. So automatically this has not been mentioned in the passage, so ये far-fetched हो जाता है. Now let's look at the C1. A rise in service sector jobs, assuming it continues to dominate GDP contribution. अब सर्विस सेक्टर जॉब्स जो हैं, सर्विस सेक्टर जॉब तो दोनों का दोनों तरफ से हो सकता है, एग्रीकल्चर भी हो सकता है और आपका इंडस्ट्रियल भी हो सकता है. अ, तो ये आपका जो है इतना इतना साउंड नहीं है. दिस इज वन ऑफ द फैक्टर्स. नाउ डी enhanced employment opportunities in manufacturing and construction, the leading sectors in growth. This absolutely is in tune with what the passage is talking about, that they have shown a remarkable progress. Hence if अगर ये है तो ऑटोमेटिकली एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज बढ़ेंगी है ना, जिसकी वजह से पॉवर्टी भी लेवल आपका जो है कम हो जाएगा और आपकी ग्रोथ ज्यादा दिखेगी. तो डी इज द करेक्ट आंसर टू दिस वन. नाउ लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द 95th one. What is the primary concern expressed by the author regarding the nature of India's GDP growth in 2023-24? Clearly again primary concern was that the particular growth does not show, it is not inclusive, it doesn't take into consideration all the sectors. Some tech sectors are performing better, some are not performing better, and the GDP growth that you see is because of the tweaking of the subsidies and the tax collections. It is not an increase in the national input. So automatically, the lack of broad-based growth across all sectors of the economy is what the author is talking about. This should have been very easy if you understood the main idea. This immediately you should have been able to do. How many of you were able to do this, guys? How many of you were able to do this? The impact of high inflation on household incomes and consumption. Guys, this is because of this. Okay, because आपका ये उसका impact है, लेकिन ये कंसर्न है. ये तो उसका हमने देखा कि इम्पैक्ट आया, ये तो कॉन्सिक्वेंस था. लेकिन ऑथर का प्राइमरी कंसर्न क्या है कि क्योंकि ये नहीं हुआ इसलिए ये हुआ. दैट इज वाई सी हम नहीं चूजेंगे. प्राइमरी कंसर्न पूछ रहा है वो इम्पैक्ट नहीं पूछ रहा है. ठीक है. हेंस बट आई चेंज्ड माय ऑप्शन. ओ अनुज, ओके ओके ओके, after you were able to do this, wonderful. So is this clear guys कि हमें आपको कैसे समझना है, क्या देखना है? Okay, wonderful. If you got this, this should have been easier, but based on if you understood what the passage is all about, based on the analysis provided, what strategy could potentially lead to a more balanced and inclusive growth in India now? Natural hai enhancing support for agriculture sector to address its current distress signal, because as per the passage, if you look at the passage, guys, just give me a minute. Passage addresses that worryingly for the full 2023-24, the primary sector's growth is pegged at the dismal 1.2%, right? And it is because of the agriculture and allied sectors are flashing the biggest distress signal. So, based on the analysis provided, what strategy could potentially lead to a more balanced and inclusive economic growth is broad-based, growth, which is one sector, while one sector is doing good, the other sector needs to be uplifted. So automatically C is the correct answer. Let's look at the A1, increasing government spending in infrastructure to stimulate growth, to create job creation and economic activity. Infrastructure में तो already उनका है, manufacturing sector is doing good, construction sector is doing good. So here this will further skew. ये तो further skew कर देगा, ठीक है? B देखें, focusing on export-led growth by leveraging global market demands. While this is true, if export, this does not tell us कि जो export-led growth है ये किसकी है. Are we talking of the goods and services produced by the manufacturing sector or by the agriculture sector? So this is not giving me a clear idea as to what are we exporting. And one again, this just is just one parameter So this is not inclusive economic growth. We are talking about the sectors over here. Implementing policies that directly boost household incomes and reduce inflation. Now, even if we were to implement policies, the policies are always short term, right? Unless आप मेजरली अपनी लाइक घर को आप संभालो, और तो आप अगर हाउस होल्ड इनकम अच्छी होती है और दोनों सेक्टर्स अच्छा करते हैं, जैसे if your parents are working, if both are working, both are driven together, both are expanding, so automatically हाउस होल्ड अच्छा बढ़ता है, दोनों इंक्लूसिव हो जाते हैं. लेकिन अगर एक सेक्टर नहीं अच्छा करता और सिर्फ एक ही करता रहता है, तो कुछ वक्त के लिए आप कुछ पॉलिसीज लेके आ सकते हो, बट उससे फुल लॉन्ग टर्म इम्पैक्ट नहीं पड़ता है. तो ये आंसर आपका गलत है. ओके, लेट्स मूव ऑन नाउ. Okay, we are going to go in for the next passage. The next passage is PM Modi's visit to Bhutan, which is not even, which is symbolic, and it is symbolic for three reasons that has been provided in the passage. Okay, so now I'm going to go. These are the points. You can read down the points on your own. I'm just putting it up just so that you read the points, and then we're going to go straight to the question, main idea. So let's take it up. What are we talking about? What is symbolic? We're talking about largely symbolic means symbol of goodwill, support, and bonding. That is what symbolic. That means it is not that, it is less practical and more symbolic. Okay. So let's move on what it means. I hope this was clear to everyone. See if your thought process was aligned with the passage. Could you get the Okay, so this is what the whole thing is about. The passage argues that India's Bhutan needs to reinforce their partnership amidst economic, social turmoil, and regional challenges. That's the main crux of the matter, and that is the reason that despite code of conduct, electoral code of conduct, PM found it necessary enough to visit Bhutan, right? So now let's come to what the main point is. The main idea of the passage is the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Bhutan, while primarily symbolic, emphasized India's unwavering commitment to Bhutan's development and its strategic partnership, especially in the light of Bhutan's increasing engagement with China. Despite practical challenges and the timing being questioned, the visit highlighted the importance of maintaining strong bilateral ties and presenting a unified front against regional challenges. So now let's come to the first one. Were you clear with this one? 97, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Inferred from the passage. India's move to support infrastructure initiatives in Bhutan is part of a broader strategy to contain Chinese influence in Bhutan. That is the main, if you look at it, Bhutan's engagement with China on border will not affect India's interests. ये तो contrary हो गया, है ना? इसको हम rule out कर देंगे. China is trying to increase its trade and investment with all the neighbors of India, including Bhutan. China is trying to integrate with all of the neighbors of India, including Bhutan. Now, this is not an inference, this is more of a premise, more of some of the, are we talking of all of the neighbors? मुझे ये भी clear नहीं है. They're not talking of all of the neighbors, right? It is talking about but it does not India's other close neighbors. It doesn't talk of all of the neighbors, other close neighbors. So this again is extreme. Let's move on to the D1. In supporting Bhutan's infrastructure project, India is more concerned with its own interest than of Bhutan's. Now, this puts India in a negative light, which has not been mentioned in the passage, because in one of the symbolic messages where India is trying to give money for the Gelefu Mindfulness City project. India, it says that India is fully committed to Bhutan's development. From there, India is not getting anything in return. So this kind of shows that India is there's an ulterior motive, okay, behind it, and which is a very negative motive. So this, yeah, ऐसा it doesn't come across the passage. So this is ruled out. Okay, so C is the correct inference. Okay, so ma'am, how Chinese influence? Which one, Anuj? Which one are you talking about? Of course, contain Chinese influence because Bhutan is in talk with China relating to land swaps, and Bhutan has told, India to slow down the talks. That means somewhere it is considering, it is giving weightage to China. So there is a Chinese influence in Bhutan. So it is mentioned over there. Okay, let's move on to 98. Which of the following is the odd one out among the following options? Which is the odd one out? A, did you get this correct? Guys, did you get this correct? Which is the odd one out? Bhutan conferred highest civilian award on Modi in 2021 for India's support during the 2000 during the COVID. Did you get it right? Okay, first of all, कंफर्ट नहीं किया था, अनाउंस किया था, दैट इज वाई ये गलत है. कंफर्ट तो उन्होंने टू अभी करा है तो ऑटोमेटिकली ये गलत है. ठीक है, अनाउंस किया था 2021 में, कंफर्म नहीं किया था. Now, PM Modi's visit to Bhutan, despite India's electoral conduct, place indicates the importance of relationship with Bhutan. It is clearly given. Let's talk about it. It is given in para 1 line 7, paragraph 1 line 7 with the I. China has engagement such as trade and investment with some countries that are close to neighbors of India. Again, this is given. Yeah, this has been implied in the last lines of the first paragraph. Last line है जो first paragraph के उसमें दिया है. China Bhutan boundary talks are not as problem free for India as they are shown to be by some. This is the inference that can be drawn, the conclusion, and this is clearly mentioned. Okay, discussed in nuances. Subtleties पे डिस्कस किया गया है इन सेकंड पैराग्राफ. लाइन 6 एंड 7 आप देखिए, उस पर आपको करा है कि it is not problem free. How is it not problem free? Because Bhutan asks India to slow down their talks, right? Because it is in the process of a land swap deal with China. So that is it is showing here. Uh, Look at here. As a result, it says that सिलीगुड़ी कॉरिडोर की बात कर रहे हैं. थ्रेट, अगर ये लैंड स्वैप हुआ तो इसमें इंडिया के इंटरेस्ट को अफेक्ट कर जाएगा. एंड इट सेज इंडिकेट भूटान में have even asked India to go slow on those projects until its boundary talks with China are complete. As a result, the most important message from Mr. Modi's sojourn is one of the united front at the time of a change. That means everything is not hunky-dory with India. So it is not as problem free, clearly mentioned. So यहाँ पर D is the correct answer, is already given. Now let's move on to the 99th one. What action by Prime Minister Narendra Modi indicates the importance he places on India-Bhutan relations despite potential obstacles? What action by Prime Minister Narendra Modi indicates the importance he places? Now this was very factual. Ma'am, option A is given. The award was conferred. Where is it given? Award was conferred. Where it is given? Highlight of the visit is yes, which had been announced in 2021. 2021 showed to be by some implies that it is not in line with the passage in question number 98. Which one are you showing? Which one are you talking about? Astha. In option D, showed by some. Bhutan talks are not as being showed to be by some. And as to be showed, as they are shown to be by some. Of course, by some here we mean the minister, है ना? Also, he's saying that it is being pretentious that Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra saying that having feigned disinterest when he brushed aside a question, right? And it is also talking about here what it means is that the government perhaps not will come out with what is the reason, but yes, they are not as problem free according to the author. So definitely this has been given. A में देखिए लिखा है भूटान conferred highest civil award on Modi in 2021. Conferred नहीं किया है, अनाउंस किया है. सो ये बहुत क्लियरली आपका रॉन्ग है. तो ऑड वन आउट आपका ए है इसमें. ठीक है. Now let's move on to the ninth one. What action? What is the 98 का मैंने बताया. A is the correct. A is the answer. Odd one out is the A. A is the odd one out. ठीक है. Let's move on now to this one. What action by Prime Minister indicates the importance? Clearly, now this is a factual question. Has been mentioned in the passage, right? It talks about the fact that Mr. Modi went ahead. आपका paragraph 1 में 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, seventh वाला देखिए, seventh line देखिए. The fact that Mr. Modi went ahead with the visit despite India's electoral model of conduct in place, his campaign schedule and inclement weather in Bhutan, nearly derailing the program, indicates how important it was. Okay, so how important it was we are talking about. So A categorically comes out as the answer. Now, announcement of doubling the financial support to Bhutan during his visit is one of the symbolical messages. This is in line with our commitment to Bhutan, right? And this is not the strategic placement that we are talking about. The reason that Modi, despite there was no need to go, he went because he says financially supporting Bhutan from 5,000 to 10,000 could have been done earlier, right? So this is not the reason. Plus, his proactive approach to discussing Galafu Mindfulness City project again is a commitment that is being shown. But it could have been done any time after the elections were conducted. So this does not even show that why it was so important. Clearly, author is saying there is a strategic need. Now, his Modi accepting Bhutan's highest civilian award on behalf of India is a strategic move. Okay, but this, what is the reason? It is that despite the everything else, मतलब inclement weather के होने के बावजूद भी, मॉडल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट होने के बावजूद भी अगर मोदी जा रहे हैं तो देयर दैट मींस that this is indicates that it is insistence on his visit that shows that the importance he places on India-Bhutan relations. So A is the correct answer. Let's move on now to the 101. Based on the passage, what can be inferred about India's strategic priority in its relationship with Bhutan in the context of um, regional geopolitics. Based on the passage, what can be inferred about India's strategic priorities in its relationship with Bhutan? Enhancing trade and investment to counter China's influence in neighboring country. Yes, absolutely right. So the reason the author talks about that, the visit to Bhutan actually is also strategically placed with trades. That is the main thing that has to be trade and investment to counter China's influence in neighboring countries. So while China is going ahead and investing in trade and investing in trade and enhancing, talking about the borders, it is very undermining for India. So this definitely talks about in the context of regional geopolitics, improving the trades with your neighbors, kind of, it uh, underpins the relationship, and somewhere this China's influence in neighborhood is dimmed. So A is the correct answer. Now let's look at the promoting cultural exchange through projects like Galafu Mindfulness City. When it talks about China as being the major threat and regional geopolitics, cultural exchange becomes secondary. Okay, so this B, and plus it has not been mentioned in the passage that there is a look at the C1, strengthening military ties to ensure the security of the Siliguri corridors has not been mentioned. One of the strategic priorities. Strengthening military ties could be in a larger context, but not mentioned in the passage. Now let's look at the D1, doubling financial support uh, to assert dominance over Bhutan's economic decision cannot be inferred because that is not what has been stated in the passage. The passage states India's genuine, help to Bhutan in trying to show that it is fully committed to Bhutan's progress. So automatically, this is very showing a ulterior motive. So this is also ruled out. Now let's move on to 101. What is the primary purpose of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Bhutan as described in the passage? यार ये तो clear होना चाहिए. What is the primary purpose? This is not the primary purpose. This he could have done even without going. To receive Bhutan's highest civilian, no. This is a gesture. It is symbolic. That is not the. This was on in the pretext of receiving the civilian highest award that the Prime Minister Modi wanted to, kind of develop a relationship where it signifies India's commitment to Bhutan's development and regional infrastructure projects. So we are talking about multiple projects with Bhutan, which India wanted to solidify. So automatically these two, symbolic भी हो गया और practical reason, strategy भी include कर रहा है, तो automatically this is the correct answer. ये दोनों चीजों को लेकर के चल रहा है. To discuss the progress of Gallifrey Mindfulness Project with Bhutanese official is not the primary purpose, it is one of the purposes. But it is narrow in scope because it doesn't talk about the trade commitment and the strategic planning to dim China's influence. So automatically this is ruled out. C is the correct answer. Okay, any confusion here? आप लोगों को ये तो clear हो गया होगा? Any confusion here? Let's move on to 102. What conclusion can be drawn about the potential impact of Bhutan's boundary talks with China on India's infrastructure projects in the region? What conclusion can be drawn about the potential impact of Bhutan's boundary talks with China? अगर भूटान की बाउंड्री टॉक होती है विद चाइना, तो उसके इंडिया के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट पे क्या क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा? ये क्लियर है क्या सबको? ये बन गया था सबको? Was this clear to everyone? ये तो it may accelerate India's infrastructure projects to strengthen its strategic foothold. No, because Bhutan talks of India to slow down. मतलब according to the author, that one of these with the land swap, it is likely that Bhutan has told India to slow down. देखिए यहाँ पे लिखा है ना. See, the Ministry of External Affairs has not denied, indicate that Bhutan may have even asked India to go slow on those projects until its boundary talks with China are complete. So it could potentially halt or slow down India's infrastructure projects due to geopolitical sensitivities. This is clearly mentioned in the passage with regard to India's infrastructure projects. So this should not have been an issue at all. Now it will likely have no impact. ये तो बिल्कुल ही गलत है, तो मैं जाते ही क्यों, तो automatically ruled out है. It might enhance collaboration with India, Bhutan, and China. This is far-fetched. When we are trying to outdo China in terms of our strategic alliance with Bhutan, how is this collaboration enhancing our relationship with China? So this is definitely far-fetched. So automatically B is ruled out. So B is the correct answer. I hope this is clear to most of you. Okay, you got it. Let's move on. Okay, now we come to the next passage. How did you find this passage? How did you find the last passage which was based on WTO? World, आपका देखिए. Did you get it right? World Trade Organization. Okay. How many of you got this right? Hmm. The passage discusses the outcome of WTO's. अब आप इसको एक बार पढ़ लो, just एक reading करो, so that you come to know whether you are aligned with the passage. Did you get it? Okay, so if you look at it broadly, if we look at it, it is the passage talks about WTO's efficacy, relevance in today's scenario, right? Along with India's stance. What is India's role in it? That is what is being talked about. So now we come to the main idea, which is the main idea of the passage revolves around the outcomes and challenges faced by the World Trade Organization following its 13th ministerial conference. The passage highlights the WTO's struggle to address contemporary global trade challenges, effectively highlighted by its inability to make significant progress and the urgent need for reforms to maintain its credibility and impact. So it is basically losing its impact, it's losing its influence, its credibility. The passage represents a WTO dealing with internal and external challenges, with India playing a key role in shaping outcomes while emphasizing the organization's need to evolve to stay relevant in global trade scenario. So that is what the passage is talking about. This was easy. Yes, I know it was easy. So how many of you had an issue with this one? Let's take option here. Which of the following, if true, would most seriously weaken the claim that World Trade Organization is becoming increasingly irrelevant in a polarized world? Okay. Now, how many of you, was there any dispute here? Seriously, we can, since WTO is all about trade, so the WTA has recently added 5 new members, indicating a growing influence. Now, this is by just adding 5 new members does not talk about its relevance. We are talking about its trade. So, growing influence just by adding five new country members, it is not indicating a growing influence in the sense that while the influence or its relevance is if it does something solidifies or comes up with strategies and policies that help trade amongst the countries. Okay, just adding people to its forum does not tell us whether it is its relevance. So this is ruled out. Let's look at the B1. A significant number of countries have shown interest in reforming WTO's dispute resolution system. While it is true that they have countries have shown interest in reforming WTO's dispute resolution system, it still does not tell us whether its relevance is there or not. It does not tell us whether, how in a polarized world, ये तो और दिखाता है कि इसका जो पोलराइज्ड, ये तो ये दिखा रहा है कि उसके डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन को बढ़ाने का मतलब ही ये है कि बहुत पोलराइज्ड वर्ल्ड है और उसकी रेलेवेंस खत्म हो रही है, तो उसकी रेलेवेंस बढ़ाने के लिए हम जो है डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन सिस्टम को वापस से रिवाइव करना चाह रहे हैं। तो बेसिकली तो ये वीकन नहीं कर रहा है, ठीक है। लुकिंग एट द WTO सक्सेसफुली मीडिएटेड अ ट्रेड डिस्प्यूट between two major economies last year. Now this is certainty, this is 100% telling you कि जो उसकी relevance है उसने वो ही किया। तो अगर वो ट्रेड डिस्प्यूट बहुत दो मेजर इकोनॉमीज की सॉल्व करता है, then it clearly shows its relevance. Now multiple nations have reaffirmed their commitment to adhere to WTO's trading rules, but whether in factuality they are able to do or not, this goes into probability. So probability को हम नहीं लेंगे, आपका आंसर जो ऑलरेडी हो चुका है, सर्टेनिटी है, उसको हम पिक करेंगे। Now let's move on to the 104th one. Which piece of evidence would most strengthen the argument that WTO's inability to make substantial progress on key issue is negatively affecting global trade? Which piece of evidence would most strengthen? B answer. Anybody who has a difference of opinion here that the recent economic data indicates a rise in trade disputes and tariffs among, अगर indicate कर रहा है ये, तो ये solid information है 100% because it is recent economic data indicating a rise. This is clearly mentioning. Any confusion in this one? Any confusion in this one? Anybody would like to ask me, would like me to address this? Then we can go ahead and address this. Right? A global survey shows that public trust in WTO is an all-time high. So we're not talking of the public trust here, we're talking about its relevant role, right, which is inability to make substantial progress. This does not tell us about public trust, again, is a public perception. It has nothing to do with its substantial progress. Let's look at the C1. Several countries have initiated bilateral trade agreements outside of the WTO framework. So what is this? Even if they have started, initiated bilateral trade agreements, it is not talking about, that is not the role of WTO, that it is stopping you from making bilateral agreements. The thing is, if there is some kind of a dispute, or is the WTO able to resolve those disputes? Is it about, is it talking about, is it addressing about the current issues? So this is in fact not going with the scenario. A report highlights increased cooperation among certain WTO members in regional trade agreements. Well, if that is the case, then it is showing its ability. Now, a report highlights in corporate, while it is true, ये भी आपका strengthen कर रहा है, तो आपका मुझे बताइए यहाँ पे, तो ये हमें बताना strengthens और ये weaken कर रहा है. I'm so sorry, ये weaken कर रहा है ना? Which piece of evidence would most strengthen the argument that WTO's inability? This is showing its ability. So ये तो weaken कर रहा है, तो इसको हम rule out कर देंगे, contrary हो गया. Okay. Now we come to the next one. Based on the passage, what can be inferred about the future of global trade policies if the trend of nations adopting more inward-looking and isolationist trade policies continues? How many of you got it right? ये कितनों का सही गया? Can you give me an answer? कितने लोगों का ये सही गया? कितने लोगों का गलत गया? कौन बताएगा मुझे? What can be inferred about the future global trade policies? ये थोड़ा सा complex था. Anybody can you give me an answer? किसका सही गया? Who wants me to address this? Okay, so अगर nations की inward looking and isolationist trade policies हो जाएंगी, तो global जो trade है वो natural है, उस पर impact आएगा. ठीक है, तो अगर इनवर्ड हो जाएंगी, दैट मीन्स अपने ही सेल्फ रिलायंट बनने लगती हैं, या मतलब लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल रशिया डिसाइड्स कि मैं वेस्ट के साथ करूंगा ही नहीं, चाइना डिसाइड्स कि हम ये अलग अलग हो जाते हैं, पोलराइज हो जाते हैं। तो इसमें ऐसा क्या होता है कि जो ग्लोबल ट्रेड से जो एक कॉम्पिटिटिव स्पिरिट आके जो प्रोडक्ट्स की वैल्यू कम होती है, क्योंकि व्हेन यू आर डूइंग अ ग्लोबल ट्रेड, सो यू हैव एन एक्सेस टू मल्टीपल कंट्रीज एंड देयर ट्रेड सिस्टम, सो ऑटोमेटिकली इससे आपके जो टैरिफ्स हैं वो लो रहते हैं। बट अगर मान लीजिए ये इंक्लूसिव पॉलिसी हो जाती है, तो जो प्रोडक्ट्स बाहर मिल रहे हैं वो अगर उनको नहीं मिलेंगे कंज्यूमर्स और बिजनेसेस के, तो ऑटोमेटिकली उनका टैरिफ्स बढ़ जाएंगे। मतलब कंट्री एक दूसरे को जबरदस्ती ज्यादा टैरिफ्स पे कोई प्रोडक्ट देगी, एंड ट्रेड बैरियर्स विल रिजल्ट इन हायर कॉस्ट फॉर कंज्यूमर्स वर्ल्ड वाइड। ठीक है, तो जो प्रोडक्ट्स के जो प्राइसेस हैं वो ऑटोमेटिकली बढ़ जाएंगे। ठीक है, तो ये इंक्लूसिवनेस की वजह से होता है। सो यू आई मीन व्हेन पीपल हैव रिफ्ट and when there are trade disputes, so if you are not getting it from particular country, let's say you were taking it from Russia, now this is not available to you, you were taking it at some cost, so now you only have Turkey providing you with that particular product. So now it will demand the whatever it wants to demand, because you will have to fulfill your need. So automatically ये अपने जो demand अगर बढ़ा देता है, तो cost की product भी बढ़ गई, तो consumers all over will suffer. That is what it is trying to say. Now global supply chains will become more diversified and less dependent. तो ये तो contrary हो गया, ये inclusive policy की बात कर रहा है, जबकि isolationist को लेकर के चलना है, तो ये तो बिल्कुल contrary बात कर रहा है। ठीक है, now let's look at the World Trade Organization will gain more relevance. Absolutely not, because if इनवर्ड लुकिंग हो गया है और आइसोलेशनिस्ट हो गया, तो वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की रेलेवेंसी खत्म हो गई। ठीक है, there will be a significant increase in bilateral trade agreements strengthening global trade relationship. अगर bilateral बढ़ रही हैं, तो global trade relations कैसे बढ़ रही हैं? तो automatically ये भी ruled out हो गई है, अपने आप में ही contrary है, hence इसको हम rule out कर देंगे। So the correct answer to this one is definitely C. Now, let's look at the sixth one. What is the main point the author is trying to convey about the outcome of the 13th Ministerial Conference of the WTO, which is despite the high stakes, the MC13 ended with limited progress on crucial trade issues. This is what has been mentioned in the passage. That is the first few lines of the passage itself, right? It so talks about precious little progress on key issues that affect global trade despite extending deliberations by a day, right? To be clear, hopes for any significant outcome from the 13th ministerial conference in Abu Dhabi were not high to begin with. Yet this was an important moment for the WTO to deliver on its mandate amid an increasingly fractious environment for the very rule of trade it seeks to enforce. Hence, it ended up with limited progress on crucial trade issues, because India could make a few things in its favor, but overall, nothing big came out of it. Now let's look at the A1. The MC successfully addressed all major issues contrary to the passage. The MC13s highlighted the effectiveness of the W2 in adopting to global challenges contrary to the passage. Okay, that is ineffectiveness. The conference was a turning point for the W in terms of member engagement and cooperation. Not at all. It was not a turning point. In fact, it was expected. According to the author, there was nothing new. We expected that much will not come out of it. So turning point बिल्कुल नहीं था. Opposite है, contrary to what they're saying. So yes, B is the correct answer. Now let's move on to the 107th one. Which statement best describes the logical structure of the argument regarding the importance of external conflicts and disruptions on global challenges? Okay, so here, what is a logical structure? It is whether it is positive, negative. There is a certain pattern that it follows. So what is the inclination that got it? How many of you got the 107 correct? What was the conflicts and disruptions have led directly to the increased isolationism and protectionism by nations? ये clearly mentioned है, guys. Impact of external conflicts and disruptions on global trade. है ना? इसको again it is in passage one. Is it passage one or is it, let me just, this talking of disruptions on critical shipment routes, है ना? And what has it returned? What has it led to? It is talking about that this has led to isolationist policies. Now, देखिए यहाँ पे लिखा है फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ an increasing inward looking tendency among nations has also catalyzed isolationist tariff heavy trade policies that run adrift of the WTO's primary purpose of open trade for the benefit of all. So clearly this is what has been talked about. Let's look at the first one. External conflicts necessitate recalibration of supply chain towards more sustainable of course, it is that external recalibration of supply chains towards more sustainable practices. Yes, this is also one of the, but it is not talking about the impact. This is a positive outcome. This is not talking of the impact. Okay, this is a positive outcome. We are talking of the negative outcome. So here, this is talking about the negative scenario. Okay, where is it going? Logically, where is this thing going? So this talks of positive. The persistence of external conflicts and disruptions highlights the fragility of global trade systems. Of course, this is true, but what is it is given better in D. So this is slightly vague in terms of what underscores the fragility of global trade systems. What fragility is given in D? So D is brings in the clarity which is given in the passage. This does not give us, this is providing ambiguity, right? What fragility are we talking about? Disruptions highlight the need for there to enforce stricter trade policies among members. This has not been mentioned anywhere, so this is not the logical structure that we will follow. So D is the correct answer here, which has been mentioned in the passage. What specific action taken by India and South Africa at the MC13 indicates a strategic approach to safeguarding policy space for sensitive sectors? Clearly mentioned in the passage, thwarting an attempt led by China and supported by over 120 countries for an investment facilitation pact. It has been clearly mentioned. A key win for India at the MC13 was its successful efforts with South Africa. Last paragraph, to thwart, look at it, thwart an attempt that was led by China and backed by over 120 countries to introduce an investment facilitation pact into the WTO framework. So clearly, this has been the one proposing a new framework for digital trade that emphasizes data sovereignty. While it may be true, but what it is simply talking of one of the factors, the thing we are talking about is investment facilitation pact, which takes care of everything, leading a coalition to advocate the reduction of agricultural subsidies by the developed nations. Again, one of the factors. This talks about the pact, so this is a better choice. Initiating a dialogue on the importance of technology transfer, ये कहीं पे अभी नहीं दिया है. This is not mentioned, so we are not going to be taking it up. Okay, so let's look at it. पहला वाला narrow है. Uh, this does not specifically talk about agricultural subsidy. Even if you were to take it, this actually comes under the Investment Facilitation Pact. So that is why we will not take it up. Okay, so this taken care of. Now I guess this is the last. Okay, so now you got it correct. Right, this one also correct. So guys, I hope this was clear to you. Anything else you'd like to ask me, or we can call it a day? Anything else? Any guys? Or is it, for my part, I have discussed with you all the questions that are there, the relevant ones, especially passage 2. I thought it will be difficult, but you guys got it right. So what were your scores? Can I know? What were your scores in LR in particular? And if such a thing were to happen again, would you be able to do? I mean, ये passage तो easy था, understandable. Okay. So guys, now I am going to. Okay, guys, we'll see you later in one of the next analysis.